Yeah.
Good morning and welcome to Livable Roadways. If we can stand and do the president, pledge of allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. Hey, we have roll call.
Yes, Councilman Citro.
Here.
Cal Hardy. Yanika Mills.
Here.
Kevin O'Hare.
Here.
David Hay.
Here.
Emily Hinsdale. Danielle Riffenberg.
Here.
Larry Josephson.
Here.
Karen Kress.
Here.
Megan Winchester.
Here.
Jesus Peraza Garcia.
Here.
Jason Jackman.
Here virtually.
Anna Quinones. Robert Frey. Brian Ramirez. Christina Steffen. Gloria Belangia.
Here.
Carlos Ramirez. Una Johnson.
Here.
Catherine Coyle.
Here.
Melissa Colazzo. Arizona Jenkins is excused today. Gus Ignis.
Here.
And Bryn Doffinus.
Here.
We do have an in-person quorum. Chair, would you call for a vote of consent for remote participation?
I will entertain a vote for remote participation.
So moved.
We have a motion made by Ms. Coyle, seconded by Mr. O'Hare. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any objection? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Chair, Ms. Quinones is online virtually.
Thank you. And let the record reflect that Ms. Hinsdale has now joined us also.
Our is parking her car.
Okay, yes.
We have a couple of new members and alternates and some people that have switched roles, so perhaps we give them an opportunity to introduce themselves.
If you are a new member and joining us for the first time, would you please raise your hand and introduce yourself? Ms. Hessinger?
I'm Rebecca Hessinger. I took Matt Lewis's spot in the community and infrastructure planning for the county.
That's her alternate.
Please go ahead.
I'm Bryn Dauphiné. I am with the Planning Commission, but I am here as the APA rep on the committee.
Thank you. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you here. Do we have any registered public comment?
Yes, Christina Costa.
Ms. Acosta?
Morning, Livable Roadways Committee members. I'm Christina Costa, local active transportation advocate and consultant. This morning, you're going to
We'd love to hear you if your conditioner's on. This is on, but you have to really speak into it for us to override the air conditioner.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
You can hear me now?
Good, thank you.
Good morning, Livable Roadways Committee. I'm Christina Costa, local active transportation advocate and consultant. This morning, you're going to hear a presentation from Mr. Chris Vella, his TV Cat project, Tampa Bay. Right, that. Familiar with that. And I'm really excited for you to hear his presentation, and I know you are going to love it. Seeing Mr. Vella's plan and revisiting my own TV Cat project prompts my visit this morning to your committee. Just over a year ago, I presented to you my TV Cat project, which was a proposed bike boulevard along Morrison Avenue, linking more than 12 neighborhoods, 3 schools, several commercial centers, and our city's largest business districts, the urban core and West Shore. I asked for your help on that at that time in requesting safer conditions at really the only critically, the biggest, most dangerous gap that would prevent people from using Morrison in its entirety. And that is the intersection of Delray, Henderson, and Morrison. The Livable Roadways Committee, as well as BPAC, did pass a motion to convey support to FDOT of additional pedestrian and bicycle improvements at that intersection, which was at the time up and coming for some remodel. Unfortunately, several recent crossings at that intersection by myself, my family members, and other people I've observed show that it remains and is in fact during the construction period more dangerous and frightening than ever. So within my communications on this subject to the many different parties over the last year and a half, I have suggested a walk audit, and I'm hoping that the Livable Roadways Committee will echo and encourage a walk audit at that intersection, and possibly some of you might even opt to participate. Again, congratulations to Mr. Bella on an exceptional TV cap project. And when you see it, I think you'll agree, we just want this kind of project enacted and deployed sooner rather than later. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Costa, are you taking this? Costa, are you taking any questions? Any questions or comments from our?
Would be happy to answer any questions.
Staff comment, because it received your inquiry and did the research to pull your motion, et cetera. So I did confirm that Gina, who coordinates directly with our partner FDOT, did convey your motion and send it on to FDOT. And then we get opportunity to request presentations and projects. And not only is it important to you and Livable when they made the motion, but the chair had expressed interest in Delray. So we have it on our list of requested projects that we have our monthly coordination call with FDOT. We can't tell them which presentations, but we've asked for those. I also learned from one of our staff members that some of the chaos and construction you see now was a project already well along the planning and design phase prior to your motion. So you're seeing the implementation of that. So we didn't have a way to influence that project and get the things built in. I had noted at the time that many recommendations that were perceived as appropriate to improve safety were captured in that intersection during the first school study, which is adopted, which we always lobby to have implemented. And then also because we know we could do a better job coordinating and getting ideas into the design of projects. We've prevailed in getting login abilities for TPO staff into the FDOT's, it's called the ERC, electronic review comments. It just began, but we meet, our team meets it just about yesterday to like catch things like, oh, there's a ramp crossing on this side, but not on that side. Would you consider adding a bicycle crossing on both sides of the interchange? And like we get that opportunity, so we're very pleased about that. And then we do have two of our FDOT representative in the room if he's got any news on that particular project. We get a follow up with that. And then yes, but then sidewalk software stuff I heard was influential in another portion of that project.
Sinsdale.
Yeah, I just wanted to tie into that. About half a mile south of there, FDOT recently completed a road safety audit outside Plant High School. This particular intersection is also within the Plant High School district and certainly walking, crossing, driving area. And I think if you're proceeding with that, you may want to look at some of their findings. And Lisa, if you want to have some of that information, it might be useful to see how that connects there.
Always arm me with information.
I wish to thank Ms. Silva because she did include the remarks that I made in some recent photographs in your packet yesterday. So you'll see some attempted some Plant High School what looked like Plant High School students attempting to cross that section, and they couldn't. The sidewalks are closed, and as a parent, I was hoping that they would ditch the plan. I don't know what happened, but it was not something any one of us would want to witness in our community. So thank you very much. Any other questions?
Mr. Garcia.
Hi, if I may, thank you, Christine. I just wanted to tie this back to our conversation last month about safety performance target. One of the big issues that was brought up was keeping an eye on work zones. So just coming back full circle.
Yes, thank you for chiming in on that.
Can I ask, Ms. Hensel, as I understand it, to get the improvements for the plant crossing, it took persistent pressure from sidewalk stompers and showing the adopted study, et cetera, to get the revisions. We would love to figure out a way to have, to have a champion, to have the right things done along major highways. So, got any
Yes,
tips? Or
that was, I will say I found that disappointing, and I don't want to
yeah, sure.
throw Emmett under the bus or anything because he was newer to that role. That study was in 2018 that found all of the same issues this recent road safety audit found. They had never been implemented. And so it's the same, the study found the exact same findings with no changes, which means there have been 2 studies done for the same intersection and nothing has changed except that the light crossing time is now, I believe, 30 seconds instead of 17 seconds to get those kids across 5 lanes of traffic.
Yeah,
So, yeah, there's a couple since, yeah.
Come to the microphone so we can get, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, it's, so there has been, like you mentioned, some additional signal modifications to extend the walking space for pedestrians that are crossing. There's also been some signage and pavement marking improvements, and there's a resurfacing project coming through the ranks there. So many of the more costly improvements that are going to be done, like trying to reduce the corner radii at those intersections to reduce the crossing distances, and additional, they're going to also be some, because it's concrete pavement right there, so they're also going to be redoing the concrete pavement in that area as well. So there are some improvements coming up that will be associated with the rehabilitation project.
Yeah, I think the plan that you all put together from the most recent road safety audit looks good. I mean, there's a lot of other things I like, but it looks good. It's just not that different from the 2018. So I don't want you to have to do that work every 4 to 5 years on the same place. Like, we should be moving on.
Yes, yeah, that's, we already coordinated with the project managers for the rehabilitation project, so they are aware of the report and the recommendations are in regards, if I make a comment on the work zone. Work zone is a high priority area for DOT, for District 7 in particular, as part of our strategic highway safety plan, as part of an emphasis area of our strategic highway safety plan. One of the things that I initiated last year was work zone safety audits. Work zone safety audits conducted probably 10 to 15 last year. We have additional ones scheduled for this year as well. We have a consultant working and assisting us, so thank you for bringing that up. That area is under construction currently, so things can be messy at times, but we will investigate and we'll look into see how we can make it, how we can make the best with what we got. Yeah.
So
To Emily's pointing about the dual study, is it that the department's policy is you have to go out fresh with your own people to review and make the recommendations? Because I've been invited to a Sheldon Road audit, and I'm like, oh, we have an adopted study signed and sealed by an engineer. Why spend the money twice if a TPO did a study and DOT could save you some money, So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those cases where the left hand doesn't talk to the right hand situation.
So maybe the ERC will help
I was
us.
not aware of that study until Emily shared it with me. And we, and she's right.
Okay.
Some of the recommendations were awesome. So.
Okay.
Ms. Kress.
Thank you.
Emma, would you mind coming back to our committee with an update when you have one?
For when high school it works.
Well, I guess
Dale Mabry.
for,
Maybe
yeah,
so,
for
Dale
Dale Mabry.
Yeah.
this particular intersection.
Yeah.
But the whole resurfacing is on Mr. Citro's request list, so it's on our list of requests where we coordinate with Suzanne every month. So when it's ready, if not, when I see it in the ERC, I'll be diving in and making sure that all the recommendations are there and asking again.
Yeah, I can, so you're requesting a presentation of the improvements as part of the rehabilitation project.
The resurfacing,
Yeah.
whatever.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'll bring that up to.
Anyone else? I made a faux pas at the last TPO meeting where I looked at Secretary Quinn and said that FDOT is more than just road building. And he corrected me and said, yes, we do much more. Christine, Henderson, Dale Mabry, and Morrison is just a terrible intersection. It was designed at a time when there wasn't much traffic in Tampa. I'm hoping FDOT in the background that all the crossings, pedestrian, bicycle, scooter, can all be taken care of at one time so that we don't have to go back 4 or 5 different times asking FDOT for money. Thank you, Ms. Acosta, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the committee. I would just say you're really, really going to be excited when you see Chris's presentation. And just remember, if we can't solve to this is the most complex type of work we're all faced with. If we can't solve to this, we can't have this fantastic plan come to life that Chris will share. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Vella, are you next?
So, sir.
Before we start, I'll entertain a motion for approval of minutes, please.
So moved.
We have a motion made by Mr. O'Hare, seconded by Mr. Hayes, excuse me. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes.
People can see it.
Yes, that's what they're seeing.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Right, good morning, everybody. I appreciate you allowing me to talk about
And
my school
get this
boards.
right into the microphone kind of loud.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, give Chris a minute.
I want to eat this thing, but. So my name is Chris Vella, and I'm with Sunshine Citizens. We're working for better transportation mobility choices, better land use in Hillsborough County. And bicycling in Tampa has been a big thing for me. I've been bicycling on and off for the past 40 years. I used to bike to Plant all the time, Sterling Avenue, and Neptune has been my connectors for that. And I just enjoy hopping on hikes from there to explore the rest of the neighborhood. Let me go ahead and proceed forward. Now, there is a QR code on the bottom right-hand portion of this presentation. You can actually put up a live map that I put together. It's a Google map. You can select any of the routes I'm going to be talking about. If you just want to look at that on the side while I talk about the project itself. Sorry, I'm just trying to touch the screen and it's not working. Okay, so one of the first things that we got to address is barriers, right? Even before cars, we just have big, large roads. So we got interstate expressway systems. Some of them are marked in the red there. They're several hundred feet across. In fact, in West Tampa, we're just under 500 feet with I-275. These roads have anywhere from 60 to 220,000 cars per day. And it's illegal for pedestrians to use them. So it's a lot of space that we just can't touch. We do have other roads that are marked in purple. Those are 6 to 8 lane roads. So those are your typical state roads like Bush, Fowler, or Mabry Highway, and so on. You're going to see AAPT up to 60,000 cars per day. Other barriers that we have are water features. So we have a tremendous amount of canals and ditches. Those are more particular in Northwest counties. So we're talking about town and country, north of the airport area. We also have Hillsborough River, very beautiful but organic, and it carves right through the city. And then we have the precious rail tracks, CSX, but we also have limited crossings, and those really put a lot of damper on East Tampa, and they also cut through South Tampa, so they do cause a barrier, even though we love CSX. We have to figure out ways to kind of go around these things. There's other barriers that are not on this map. Health, environmental issues. We need to make bicycling more accessible.
E-bikes is a new thing, and I'm so excited to show you the map because e-bikes can really bridge a lot of that distance with health issues and also the horrible summer heat that we deal with every day. And then there's events and crashes. Even in a car, you just don't know what your day is going to be like. There could be a big crash, and that's going to ruin your day to get to places. So let's go on to the next slide. Let's see. No, it's not. Okay, cool. All right, so what you're looking at right now are mainly two-lane roads. What's blue is north and south, what's orange is east and west. These are two-lane roads. Majority of them are shaded. The speed is 30 miles an hour or less. And the average traffic counts is about 5,000 cars per day or less. So we already have this infrastructure in place, which is fantastic. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to build anything new. And a lot of these routes you see, they're kind of longer, so they bridge between neighborhoods. So you can easily take one or two of these roads and cover over 3 miles instantly. Now, they're not perfect, obviously, so I put a little bit of a gradient color to them. The darker the color, the better the bike riding is. And the lighter the color, the more challenges you have. I also noted on this map here, Gray Street. So it's like that dashed line that kind of goes toward the center of the circle. We're going to talk about Gray Street because that's a route that I typically take, but it's a typical bicycle boulevard, what I feel, what we see elsewhere in the city with similar challenges. We go to the next slide. So what do these bicycle boulevards look like? Well, here's some images. The top 8 are my more favorable ones. They're shaded. So we're talking about Central Avenue, Church Avenue, which is fantastic. Henry Avenue is great over by Egypt Lane. We have Zeal Street. Part of it is actually really good. It only gets bad once you get west or east of Del Mabry. But so we have some high quality examples already in place that just can be nurtured further along some of the bad parts. Again, this wouldn't cost that much money. And the images down below are examples. Again, these are found on my map. They're not the most favorable. They're not bad per se, but you just end up having wider 2-lane roads. It might be in a more industrial area. It might be more barren. It might not have that much pedestrian activity. You might have a big road dumping a lot of traffic onto this segment. So there is some inconsistency. It's still a 2-lane road. It's not like Del Mabry Highway, but the quality kind of dips down, but it goes back up again. So it's just being aware of these and then doing small little improvements to tweak it. My next slide here is me showing, kind of walking you through West Gray Street here. So I typically take this when I bike to West Shore Plaza or if I want to go to the Skyway Trail. So from the far left, number 1 is North Rome Avenue or South Rome Avenue. So this is kind of the direction I come in because I live in Ybor. And as you can tell in the photos, it's a 2-lane road and there is shade and it has the smallest intersection on Del Mabry, which is fantastic. And that intersection actually is super manageable because on the other side of Gray Street and Del Mabry, they put speed tables to slow down the traffic. And so those are very simple solutions that you can do. Now, there's another color I'm introducing here, and it's going to kind of theme on from here on out. It's purple. Purple is improvement. So the improvements that I like to see happen on this boulevard as well as others is when you approach a 4-lane road like South McDill or Lois Avenue, that you do have a crossing there, an RRFB, where you can press a button and it lights up and allows pedestrian crossing to occur. Right now, for some odd reason, our crossings are RRFB on both these roads. Well, one from McDill, it's like non-existent. For Lois, you have to go all the way up to I-275 across. That puts you more in danger, and you don't want to do that. You actually want to put RRFBs where you need them, where pedestrians can use. This is still manageable, even in peak hours. I used to bike from Market Rocky Point all the way to Ybor for my work. I still can manage these intersections, but it required more skill right. So these are small improvements that we can do. Let's go on to the next slide here. So what do those solutions look like, right? Well, we talked about that RRFB. So a perfect example is Palm Avenue. That top image on the top right-hand corner of this slide, it shows you, like, you press that button, it lights up. This has decreased crashes with pedestrians almost like a tenfold. I don't even hear stories anymore of people getting hurt crossing Palm Avenue, as long as they use this, of course. But we got a series of them. Down below, it's hard to tell, but it's a mini roundabout we don't need to build very expensive, large roundabouts. We can actually use little pizzas, if you will, and put them on busier 2-lane roads. So for the bicycle boulevard aspect, you just put a little bit of concrete down, problem solved, really. And just to give you a scale of this is probably 1/16 of the size of what we see on 40th Street. It's pretty tiny. And then, yeah, fire trucks will go over it as well, for university services. To the left side, this is like really important. So I'm really frustrated sometimes with the county trying to improve roads like Fletcher Fowler and Hillsborough to be pedestrian friendly because inherently they're not. We need to know how to cross those roads better. We need to have opportunities to cross those roads better. But we need to look at the inventory beyond that roadway. So on the far left, you see Hillsborough Avenue heading towards Town and Country, and then you have 589, the Veterans Expressway, right at the top of it. You can see how massive that is, right? I have this white arrow pointing into a little bit of a colored ribbon there, and that is a canal and a ditch. And so there's opportunities to take funding from utilities and land use and actually put the boardwalk. Yeah, I wish I had a laser.
It's hiding.
I'm gonna try to remember to bring.
Okay. I was looking at the bicyclist.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
I'm
So-
fine.
So like we have miles of these canals in Town and Country and Northwest Hillsborough County, so we could easily trail along it or put a boardwalk on it. And what's great is that money, it comes from a tip, but it doesn't come from your budget. You can work with utilities to get some of this in stormwater, to get some of this funding to improve it. So that way you can take the money that you have right now in the county and state and actually fix potholes in the neighborhood streets in front of people's homes, while you do this in a separate pot of money. So I know there's trail maps out there, but it's about trying to build that, because then what happens is you can go under a veterans and you can avoid big roads like Hillsborough Avenue and make that connection to Town and Country all the way to each lane. And it just helps the network. We don't need these today, but it's just something to think about. And this last page on these fixes, Rowland Park Drive, I don't know if you guys have been over there. It's a very busy road. It's got a horrible bridge, but there's a tremendous amount of right of way. So when I say right of way, there's a lot of land on the side of the road. So in that bottom right hand image, what we do is we could take the existing sidewalk and simply widen it. That could allow bicyclists and people to walk, run, skate, whatever, to use that. And it's just much safer. And this is a quick fix. In fact, if you go down to South Manhattan Avenue, just south of Candy Boulevard, there's an excellent trail over there on South Manhattan. And I see a lot of people use that. It just goes way where CSX is, but it goes for, I think, over a mile and a half. And it's very safe. Bicycle storage is a big thing. You need to have protected bicycle storage in this town because it gets hot, it rains, there's a lot of theft. And so someone mentioned about bicycle corrals, I think, and yeah, we need to have some corrals with points for that. And those easily can go on a 2-lane road that's wider. So we used to have a streetcar system, and so those 2 lanes, some of the 2-lane roads are so wide. So what do you do in an extra inventory? Well, people put bicycle storage, and the city and the county can lease that space for private operators. Paint, I don't necessarily believe paint saves lives, but I do believe paint helps identify a route that people have traveled and used. And that's where we need to bring that familiarity, right? So paint is a very cheap thing to do. And then what I'd like to propose with all these routes you're looking at are just a simple wooden post. So I like to work with the county and the city just to have a simple white post that says bicycle boulevards. Just having very cheap ways of identifying a road builds confidence, rider confidence. There's no science to this. It's all about comfort and seeing other people do it. But it makes sense to do it on these roads because they're 2 lanes and they're slow and they're shaded and they go places. Another very low expensive fix right above that is introducing simple concrete curbs. In the case of this 2-lane road that you're seeing here, this example, it slows down traffic. It provides an island for pedestrian crossings. It's not substantial. It's not something, a hop system that you can see on Bush Boulevard. It's very cheap, and it also helps direct traffic on busier intersections. So I'm just looking, because we didn't get that referendum because money's short, I'm just trying to use what we have and look at very low cost ways where we can really saturate the network and make it friendly. So the last slide that you're seeing here is actually a fully realized, built out bicycle program. All of this stuff exists, other than what you see in purple, because those are improvements. And the yellow lines are introducing, so that's the big difference between this image and the other. And it's hard to tell, I'm sorry, but the previous image is on the bottom right-hand corner. But what I ended up doing is I redundancy to this. So I add these other yellow lines, and they're actually really slow streets. So we are very deep pocketed neighborhood streets that actually link up to the more prominent two lane roads. And so I am looking at ways of how we can make connections to that easier, and they hit every single neighborhood center. So again, all of this stuff exists. Now the improvements are in purple, and so they're very similar to what I showed you in the previous slides. All of this information is on my maps on Google. So like when you scan that QR code, you can select any of these lines. It'll tell you the location of it. It'll tell you the traffic counts on it. It'll tell you the shading of it. I might put in some verbiage of you're going to be dealing with a tricky intersection, so just be careful. I might note in their speed tables. So this is going to be, I got most of it, but I'm going to be tweaking this over the next couple of years just to constantly update it. Again, this information can be imported into a KMZ or a KML, and that can be put into our GIS further along, or combined with other maps that the city and county has worked. No signs here. This is, again, 40 years of me living in Fairwood Village, crossing Delaware when I was 8 years old, and also biking to school in South Tampa. I grew up in Sauk too. I lived in I lived in the Soho area, Davis Island. So I've experienced virtually almost all angles of riding ship around the Bay Area. So I just wanted to share those experiences with you today, and that it's not a sad world right now, but with that funding, you just have this great opportunity. You just need to identify it and jump on it today. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Wheeler? Mr. O'Hara.
I was very excited to hear Chris's presentation today. And I think really because a lot of organizations in Tampa right now, be it the city, the county, or third parties or whatnot, are looking to do more with less. And a lot of that starts with identifying what we have. And I think, at least from the Alliance's perspective, our ability to identify low stress networks coming in and outside of the Alliance and in the West Shore area is really important. So very excited to talk about Gray, obviously, but also just some of the other wonderful roads that we have that are already safe, that, very small, cheap, low cost and low impact solutions can go towards making just a better overall experience and encourage that community of folks that are going to, safely ride their bike around town. So I was very excited to hear this presentation, and even more so again because we just finished a non-motorized count program on Gray at both Lois and at Himes. And I think, I'm glad you brought up the two intersections that need improvement. Really three when you count McDill, but at I believe maybe the city can comment on this later on in their presentation, but at the intersection of Himes and Gray, there are those kind of cheap plastic bollards that are there. My understanding from the city is that those can actually be removed, and the intent is for them to be removed and allow for some sort of either a full-blown intersection or a pedestrian counter to go in there, which would be great. And again, low cost, very easy to do since it's just bolts in the ground. And we have the data to prove it. We actually had a live traffic counter back in December that showed both traffic movement and also bicycle pedestrian movement over 24 hours, which is really insightful. We saw many instances of drivers going over those plastic bollards while also having pedestrians and bicyclists use that as a safe haven as they're crossing that 4-lane road. So the use is there, and it will continue to get used until something is done. Again, I'm probably preaching to the choir by saying that we need some sort of full-blown intersection there, but we're really excited about it. And yeah, just great work, Chris. This is the best presentation. It got me really excited this morning. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Perhaps it's something the Transportation Committee would benefit from, since there is some marriage with it, if you have a spot in your agenda. Because I know your overlay speaks to some of this, and you are pursuing similar things.
Oh, we'll be in touch. Don't worry.
Yeah. I want to make this map's publicly available, but you're welcome to contact me if you want the presentation. And I don't mind going and talking to other neighborhoods about particular areas. I mean, I can go on for hours. Like if we deep dive into certain areas where I found specifically, but I just want to let you know I'm thinking about the county and really having e-bikes has given us that ability to really reduce that 15 miles down to like really a comfortable level. I'm looking at reduce cars out of the road and like right now transit is like kind of far out, but if I could move 1,000 people off that road, then that's going to make a tremendous difference in a lot of these neighborhoods, and it's going to be infectious. And I think really it's going to be a good infection where people want to cycle for, and then like I feel safer walking on these roads or biking on them, seeing other people do it.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
It's a great presentation, and what was interesting about, the map that's there is that there's a lot of straightaways that are considered bike boulevards, but there's none that really connect, at least the low stress ones. So there's I see a lot of segmentation here in terms of bike boulevards that are, perceived low stress versus ones that need more attention. So that just kind of made me think, well, there's going to be a lot of intersections that needs, more attention in terms of bike safety, and painting, striping is great. But one of the things I've noticed is that if you go to an intersection, you're not triggering a light or stopping traffic. So if there was a push button near the bike lane and not where you have to get onto the sidewalk, push it, go back around, and then cars are confused. What is that person doing circles for? I've not seen that in any presentation yet, but maybe this is the time, I was like, oh, this is a good time to bring it up as a little push button for the bicyclists. I think that would be a really low stress way to cross a street.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. And, there could be that flashing beacon system that again, there could be another way to access it while you're on a bicycle or be closer to the road or something. And it's very flexible. It's not reinventing science here or anything.
I just never saw it in a presentation before, but I know like Seattle has it, Austin has it, and I think it's time for us to have it too, to connect those boulevards together better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think our biggest Achilles heel right now is in South Tampa and West Tampa is South Hill. It's 4 lanes of Columbus all the way to Bay to Bay. That needs to be reduced down by 1 lane on each side. And then instituting like crossings so things have a lot easier. Make them smaller, cheaper because we got something more managed. But right now, you got these wonderful routes, and then you got to cross the roads like Dill, and it's very difficult. There's just not that much there.
Right. Thank you.
Ms. Hinsdale.
I think you've identified very well where we need to focus our funding. It's intersections. We have some of the other infrastructure that we can connect to throughout the city. Intersections are a problem, and this ties in really well to what we were talking about this morning, talking about biking to Plant Road that you identified isn't Dale Mabry, because who really wants to ride their bike in Dale Mabry? It's 1 block off, and it is a safe, low-stress road that goes the same route. The issue is going to be the intersection. So if we keep, as we work with the limited funding we have, I think you've shown very well with your map and with your presentation, intersections are we really need to concentrate how we are spending our money.
Is there any other questions?
I wanted to give a quick shout out to Jason Jackman and Tia Boyd for managing this UVCAP program. I think they do a great job with it. And Chris, I'd love to have you come present to our Downtown Transportation Committee. Sure. This is, I think, a QR code that will be helpful to a lot of people to choose those routes. And even I know the city's been talking about, do we need to update the bike map? Maybe there's some way to incorporate it all there. And I think you're super smart to just identify these are all low-cost solutions. We don't need to wait for a referendum to make them happen, right? Yeah. So kudos. This is a great presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want people to be so excited they can hop their bikes, like when they get out here. I want to try out this road.
Yeah. And then
we should,
And then a shout out to the city for the e-bike voucher program. That I think the application period is now. It's going to be a lottery, and it's like $500 off an e-bike. So it's a great time to consider an e-bike. And you have to commit to replacing some of your car trips with the bike trips to apply for it. So.
Ms. Winchester.
You mentioned co-locating with utilities and stormwater. That is something that we're looking into.
Okay.
Yeah. So not in this area that you have on the map, more in like South County, but that is something that we're looking into for the community's master plan update. So that is something that is on our radar to do to try to co-locate those trails with utility easements.
Perfect. Yeah, it's so I mapped out. I'm taking the bicycle trail that's unofficial along Adamo to 50th Street. Right before 50th Street, it dies. Like it just becomes swamp. And so on this map, that's a purple improvement. I extended that trail all the way to Mayville Bridge because they just redid it. I haven't been on it yet, but Beth told me it's like. So then that way, then you can get down deeper into like the Palm River area.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to look for ways to connect to that. But I was trying to attempt to at least use what we got there, and that extending that trail that we got. And I think it's what over at like 44 and Adamo, it's like right there where McKay Park is. If we can just push that out further, like that's going to really close up that east-west gap, the efficiency that we got there right now.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I believe Cal Hardy has arrived.
Yes, for the record.
Okay. Well, the reason I say that is because while he was actually in attendance virtually, he did make a note of something about Gray Street, and I wanted to give him the opportunity because I didn't have a chance to say it yet.
Well, since he has shown up, I will recognize Mr. Hardy. Mr. Hardy.
Thank you. I always like to be fashionably late, so.
And you do it so well.
So I just want to say Gray Street is a program. So we do have a project there to do a bike boulevard on that roadway. And then there's several intersections. McDill is also on the Safe Streets for All grant. So this section between where Gray Street intersects is not technically, but we're looking to just extend it all the way down to Kennedy. The Safe Streets for All, the high injury network, I should say, is above the interstate like Green Street to Columbus.
Yeah.
But you kind of need to take the section down to the next intersection anyway. So that will have an opportunity for a crossing there. We also have Lois Avenue in West Shore, which we're looking at signalizing both Laurel and Gray with that project. And so that would be the crossing there. And then, like you mentioned on Hines, what we can do there is just formalize that median with a bike pass through. And then the county also has unfunded plans, but there are plans on Howard and Armenia for RFB crossings. And I heard a comment about the push buttons. We're doing that as well with the push buttons. You'll have two push buttons for the RFB, one at bike level side of the road and one at the actual crossing. And then I think that's it. But we have a lot of stuff going on in that area, so that road should be done relatively quickly. I think it's actually on the Safe Streets for All grant too, so we have funding for that.
Yeah, I reached out to Avtop with the possibility of putting in lines at 119, 104. I forgot. Because 19th is actually a really good street. It just needs to keep it home. There's a crossing there, 19th, well, roughly 19th and Dr. King. The important thing is there's a school there. I just feel like there's got to be a bridge or East Tampa or whatever. And then all we have to do is improve 19th once we get over to the north side. For all Freeman's, we just put a separated lane, and that goes out to Beach. So
Yeah,
we're just looking at ways to really kind of hook in.
That's on our Safe Streets for All too, the 19th Avenue. Actually, it isn't, but funnily enough, when we met with Daryl Shaw on Ybor Harbor, he mentioned that, and he's like, we have a raise grant for 26 applications for 26 in Palmetto Beach and 22nd. Yes. So like 3 roads through there, and that would be part of the Green Artery. But when we were going after that, we asked for a letter of support. Indicated, you all should look at this one. 19th it's funny. It's 6 lanes wide. It's 2 lanes, but it's 6 lanes wide of pavement. It's gigantic. So when we were looking at it, it was almost comical how big it is. So there's a lot of room to play with there.
Ms. Silva.
I was just going to mention good news. I took note, Chris, to share this info with our consultant because I'm project managing 2 Vision Zero streets for Slide and Waters. And so we will be looking at ways to make it more bicycle safe and for in all modes. So that's good news. And then, yes, glad Megan mentioned their work, but also coming to this committee hopefully soon is the county's work on the bicycle network. They did something kind of similar about ranking stress levels and prioritizing because, you know, they seem low cost, but we have no money, so still low cost, has to be figured out when and how. So stay tuned to our agendas if you'd like to see that.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And just to wrap up really quickly, we'll be doing a presentation on the 39th, I'm sorry, 29th of this month. I believe it's 29th, and it's going to be at Union Station, and it's with the TV cap. So it's with the city program for this. I think it's open to the public, and it's going to be a bunch of other students as well. And they got like really, so you guys really should check it out.
All you can send the info to me and I'll distribute it. We got to move on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Mr. Hay, Mr. Hayes next, and then you're up.
Chris, great presentation. I was very glad to see the importance that you put on shade as usability. I know we put a lot of this infrastructure in, like on 301, there's a great bike path along 301. The issue with 301, though, is there's no shade.
There's no shade.
And that in July, you've got this beautiful trail and there's nobody using it because it's 120 degrees out. So very good. If we're co-locating things, hopefully we're planning also for the trees to be co-located, so then we can offer the importance of the shade. So that was all I wanted.
You're up. Thanks for recognizing me, Johnny Wong, CPO staff. It's a kind of a question or comment directed to Chris. Like, while we all want an engineered solution, no big deal. While we wait for that to happen, I'm wondering if a stopgap measure could be turning this into an app. So I'm kind of thinking of like a route planning app. And if it already exists, like, stop me, but selecting your route based on preferences, like if you want shade, if you need to get water, traffic volume, speed, crash history, those kind of things. Because I think we have all those elements already to make it happen. I'm not like an app developer, but somebody that sits in this room at some point in time could probably do it. So if you're okay with it, I might bring you to the ITS to make this presentation.
Yeah, I'd love to. And thank you for that. And I think one solution is just to see what USF is up to as well. Because they got a lot of young, bright minds over there that know about these apps. And then I can certainly work with them to port some of this data over. Maybe we can get something going and try to link all the agencies together. So,
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
Sorry, it took a while.
Yeah.
Mr. Duran and Ms. Bond.
Want to advance it yourself? Up there? Sure.
Ready to
Be
go?
open. Ready to go. Yes. Sure.
Yeah.
Ready? I know I have to slow it down.
Well, yeah, while we're waiting for volume, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming in. Chair, committee members, thank you for allowing us to speak to you today. My name is Emmett Duran. I just started January a couple months ago with DMT. I'm a former member of the LRC, representing Greater Tampa Section IT. Now with FDOT as the district safety engineer, the safety office. I'm here with Julie Bond.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Julie Bond. I can see a lot of familiar faces, but some new ones. So I'm with the Center for Urban Transportation Research at the University of South Florida. Thanks for recognizing all the bright minds that can do apps there. And a lot's going on there at, we're known as Cutter, as most of you know. And I've been there for about 17 years and worked on many different projects. I'm the project manager for this safety outreach on select high injury networks in Hillsborough County. And so I'll be working hand in hand with DOT and the TPO. And this is a one-year project. And so we started it about a month ago. And so today, Emmett and I are going to really just kind of give you an overview of what the project is. And then we can come back within the year and give you updates on how it's going.
That, I think we're up on the slide, so.
We can see it online. Just takes a minute in the room, so go ahead and scan. They're bright-minded people. Okay. We're just going to start out. I'll start out with a little background on how this developed because I did write the scope of work
And that was taking advice from the TPO and DOT. And so really the way this came around is it's a federally funded project. And so as you know, Hillsborough County has identified a high injury network, right? Again. So they have identified that already. They have those high injury networks, and that's what we're working with on this project. FDOT has target 0. So they also are looking at ways to get to 0, ways to look at what's happening on these corridors and find solutions that we can implement. And again, as you saw the name of this, it talked about geofencing. This is a marketing project. We are looking at, it doesn't involve infrastructure, but however, as we go out and look at what we're going to do, it takes a holistic look at the street. And also we're looking at the safe system approach. How many of you have heard of USDOT's safe system approach? Okay. I know a lot of people have talked about that, and it does provide a pretty good background for what we're doing as part of this project. So this is the safe system wheel. So you can see safe roads, safe vehicles, emergency response, safe road users, and safe speeds. And so I'm trusting you're seeing this, although we're not seeing it. So we're focused only on 2 of these. So we're looking at safe speeds and safe road users. So safe road users are motorists, bicyclists, pedestrians, anyone who is out there on the road that this can impact. And these are the principles that are guiding us. And so we know humans make mistakes, right? So we're going out there on these different high entry networks, and we're looking at what is happening. We know humans make mistakes. We all share responsibility, and we want to be proactive on these high entry networks. So our overall goal really, of course, is to reduce injuries and fatalities, but it's so much more. It's really looking at how to make these streets livable, how to look at how we can work with the community, the business owners, and everyone who is using that street. And we are taking a social marketing approach to this. So this is a process that we're following because it is going to end in some marketing approaches, but we need to figure out what those are, what behaviors we're going to look at, and how we can really impact those users, right? We don't just want to think these are the messages that we can throw out there. We want to know what's going on, and each one of these corridors is different. Emma's going to tell you which ones were chosen. But first, I'll tell you a little bit about the social marketing process. And I don't know if any of you know, Cutter has a social marketing and transportation certificate program. Has anyone taken that, have the certificate? Anissa and Karen, and maybe, no, you haven't? And you haven't? Well, you should, okay. Yeah. And it's free to Florida folks. We're going to be opening it up again. We partner with our public health, and so this is an approach that comes from the public health. So it's a process that involves looking at who your audiences are. So we can't market to everyone, right? We have to look at our target audiences to be effective. So this is a simple overview. So our process is we're going to select our target audiences. This is what I'm working on right now. We're going to set our behavior objectives and target goals. We're going to identify barriers, benefits, and motivators, right? We want to know what those barriers are to behaviors that we see, motorist behaviors, pedestrian behaviors. We want to look at what motivates them, because what might motivate me might not be what motivates you. We want to develop our positioning statement. We'll determine our marketing mix strategies and incentives. And that's when the fun part comes, that we identify our communication channels. So this could be where the geofencing comes in, or whatever we decide is going to work on that street. And again, they're all different as we're going out and looking. Then we'll develop our survey and messaging that we're going to use. So that's a quick overview of the social marketing process that we are using. Again, this is a fast project. It's only 1 year. And we're about a month into it, so I'm really doing my situation analysis right now, and then we're going to put in place what works best for each corridor. And now Emma is going to tell you which corridors that we have chosen, the high entry network.
Yeah, so Julie, thank you. So as Julie was mentioning, select the corridors for the high entry network, some of those top corridors. We work with the county on selecting some of those corridors. So it's a mix of state roads and county roads. So first one of the first ones that we have is 50 and 56th Street. Okay, to Boulevard Avenue. The second one will be 56th Street from Slide Avenue to Bush Boulevard. We also have State 60, Adama Drive from Orion Road to the Baltimore Road. And we have 4th Avenue from Waters Avenue to Bougainvillea Avenue. We're also looking at Nebraska Avenue from Avenue to East Haddon. And we have also Shelter Road, from Hill Road to Waters. And we have 15th Street from Power Avenue to Fletcher. So these are the 7 that we are going to be looking at, walking, biking, with the focus group as well, to review this quarter. So it's a mix of state and county studies.
There's a lot of transit ridership along there, so maybe we can get some of our heart buddies to go out, because they have like,
Definitely heart is gonna be a big, heart is gonna be a big part of this. And as I've been out on all of these roads quite a bit lately, yeah, heart is gonna be a really big stakeholder, because there are buses and most of the people I saw, I was just out on Sheldon, are to and from bus stops, depending on what time they're there. So heart will be a very big stakeholder in this.
Yeah, so as part of our screening of the corridors that we look at the Vision Zero plan that the county developed, and from there we use that as an initial point to identify the corridors. But the crash data on those was covering 20 up to 2017, I believe. And so what we did is we want to make sure that we're working with the latest information to make sure if there are any changing trends in other corridors to prioritize those that are seeing an increase or seeing a priority that we're not in previous years. So this is just an example of the analysis. Where the hotspots locations for pedestrian and bicycle crashes, fatalities, serious injuries, Children Road and Nebraska.
So again, it is a quick project, and the official start date was February 9th. So I just wanted to give you an idea of the project timeline. So right now, what I'm out there doing is assessing our high injury network environments. That's part of the social marketing process. You don't guess, you go out there and you really kind of live in those corridors. You get to know who the people are and what the impacts are. So again, something interesting with when I was out on Sheldon is there were some Hillsborough County workers there at the Publix by Sheldon and yes, thank you. And I was talking to one of the guys, and he became so interested. He didn't know what a high injury network was. He became so interested that Brent and I were walking down the street. He came with his truck and pulled over to find me again to tell me some other things that were going on. And so these are things that you find as you're out there. I mean, he's a great person. I mean, you know, to get involved with people who are out there working for Hillsborough County, for example, because he was very excited to tell me what was going on. And he's a great, you know, person to talk to. So we learn things like that when we're assessing our high injury networks. You don't want to miss that step when you're looking at these programs, implementing a program. Then the next step after I get this done, Sarah Hendricks, who used to be on your committee, is doing a literature review right now. So we're looking at all the literature review out there and what people have done similar to this. If they have or if they haven't, we don't know, but her literature review will help also guide us. And we do plan to have a paper out of this at the end too, and that lit review will really guide us on what's going. So I think we're going to make a big impact nationally with this. This is one of the most important things. If you ever put anything out there, any type of collateral material, any marketing piece, you have to pre-test it with the people that are going to be seeing it. Because if you're design a marketing piece, think it's great, and you take it out there, your audience might think it means something exactly opposite of what you thought it was, right? And so we pre-test in the social marketing process. Then we'll implement and manage the campaign. I'm probably looking at a good 6 months where we'll do a lot of heavy media. Whatever we develop out of this, though, we do programs already. We're on other different corridors with FMDOT providing education. And one of the things we do is one thing that proved successful was like involving all the businesses along the corridor and really having them give impact, because everyone who's walking and driving are going into those businesses, right? And I drove down Nebraska this morning to get here. I stayed on
thing in, just absorbing in, you know, and so it's interesting, different times of day. It was very, traffic was very heavy and people were trying to cross at different locations. So if anyone knows me, I'll be living on these corridors for the next year so that I know it's effective. And then we'll monitor and evaluate. So that is our 1-year project timeline. I have bike down, I live right on 56th Street, Temple Terrace. So for me, I can go out on 56th Street. I've biked up and down it. King High School is at the end. So the schools, we're documenting what schools that we can have as partners on this. We already have with FDOT a really great high school education program that we've been doing for years and years. And so that can also be a part of it and maybe expand it because we know there are students at certain times of the day who are crossing and we want to make sure that they're included. So there may be different things. It's going to be interesting to see what we can come up with. So that is just a quick overview. Again, we're just starting the project and I'd love to hear some feedback. And Emma, if you have anything fun to tell?
No, I think definitely looking forward to presenting more in the future. I'll come back to the committee and presenting more result and progress. This is definitely a new thing for a lot of us because nothing like this has ever been done where DOT is going full on with the outreach for hydrogen network. So you know, we're very excited about this. Engineering, you know, DOT is known for engineering, right? You know, it's for safety and reducing fatalities and serious injuries needs to be a comprehensive approach to it. This includes engineering, education, and also enforcement, which we have another program that targets that area. So, you know, we're hopeful that with a combination of these efforts, we can definitely, you know, get to zero.
Ms. Hinsdale.
I just wanted to mention to you, Julie, you identified that there were some schools along these routes. Ask that you connect with Abigail with Hillsborough County Public Works because they've done some school, you may already be aware of this, sorry, they've been doing some school safety studies. You said you looked at King High School, they did just complete one there, so they came up with a lot of recommendations there, so you don't have to repeat that work.
Yeah, I'm involved on those committee meetings too.
Okay,
and so, yes, we definitely don't want to recreate the wheel on anything, and so we're bringing this part of this. We bring in anything that's been done prior and look at any stakeholder who has, and you'll definitely be involved too. So anything that's been involved, you know, done, we'll look at.
Mr. Ignis.
I just briefly worked for the Archdiocese for the Diocese in Petersburg. And a lot of the private schools, now we may think private schools are richer and they, you know, richer people, so we don't have to worry about them because they're not the public school system. But a lot of the kids who are going to those private schools now are using state funds to help pay the tuition, so they're not really rich families. We have to make sure that we start incorporating the private schools. Some of them have as many kids as the local public school do. And they're creating just as many issues on children walking, children biking. And in fact, there's actually less people driving their kids to school because they usually live in the geographic area. We make sure that we incorporate the private schools, particularly like at St. Joseph's in West Tampa. It's only a block or two away from West Tampa Elementary School. We incorporated a lot of project stuff at West Tampa. And I spoke to the principal at St. Joseph's, and she's like, well, nobody lets us know about anything. So somehow we make sure we incorporate the public, private, and the public schools. I know it's tax money, but there's just many kids going to private schools nowadays, not equal to the total amount of public schools, but there is a sizable amount of children going to public schools on state money, so that we incorporate all the schools, not just. That might mean an outreach to, particularly in this county, to the Diocese in Petersburg. Incarnation in Town and Country, that's right along Sheldon, and another one of those areas that you're looking at, just to bring that in. And because I was working in Diocese, I commuted every day on the bus and on bike to Tyrone Square Mall from West Tampa every day. St. Pete seems to have been able to really incorporate bicycle, walking, and public transit In fact, they have this one transit system. You take your bike onto the bus, and the centers of the buses hold the bike right side up in a vertical position with elevated stations and whatnot. And Cal and I talked about this briefly last time we were here, that these high-speed bus routes don't require tracks, don't require, that are using rubber on the road are much easier and cheaper to build. You know, we keep talking about light rail. I will tell you that was as fast as any light rail as I've been on. Elevated stations every 15 minutes. Phenomenal system. They can build it in St. Pete. Okay, and we could easily build those in here.
And just so you know, we're including everything on the corridors, every school, and on Sheldon, you're right, there were lots of small little schools along there that are not public, so they will all be included.
Ms. Kress.
I want to make sure I understand the campaign. So what I took away is that you're going to be coming up with messaging that will be targeted to both drivers and basically all users of those corridors about like better behavior.
That's what we're trying to figure out. We don't know yet. So the research we're doing, situation analysis guides that. We don't make any assumptions yet. So once that part is done, we look at it and then we decide who our target market is, our target audience is, and then we develop the messaging based on what we learn. So we really don't know all of that yet. I mean, we can expect it'll probably be motorists, pedestrians, bicyclists. We'll have different messaging for each one, but we don't know yet. That's what we're doing.
But it's not like a road safety audit where pedestrians are going to say, well, I need a longer crossing time to cross this intersection or something.
No, the situation analysis we got, it's not a road audit. When we're going out, we're going out and just looking and seeing who's there, what the audience should be, what people are doing. It's not a road audit at all. So yeah, that's a good question because it shouldn't be confused with a road audit.
Ms. Coyle.
I was just going to piggyback on that just to make sure it's clear in my mind. So it's a high injury network. We know that. You're really trying to figure out why or what feeds into that without making any pre-assumptions. You're doing the research to kind of help figure out why and what you can do to
there are
help
on the
that.
engineering wise, there are things that can be done on these corridors, and there are plans to do things on the scope 56th Street right now. There's a BD&E planning engineering study going on 56th Street. That's I believe it's almost completed or going over that. But there is that's one part of it, right?
Okay.
The other part is tailoring a message that people, are used to hearing. Don't cross there, push the button. But what are some of those barriers that are preventing the people that are going in this area to get to go to the signal? Maybe the signals are too far, or what is it that maybe they don't feel comfortable walking all the way to the signal when they can just go mid-block across to the gas station. So try to identify those messages that can resonate. And see if engineering needs to intervene at one point to facilitate that. So we don't know what it's going to be, but that's part of the research.
Anyone else?
Sure. As a participant and a previous graduate of the social marketing, and I was like, no, it's not social media. It's not social media and it's not marketing. And I'm not an outreach professional per se, but all planners have to be effective at outreach. And I learned so much that we were wrong in that program. And I'm constantly trying to explain it to my fellow planners here. So I'm very excited that this project will come through and hopefully educate, make us all better planners, because like we go out with our thing, hey, do our survey, blah, 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 and we think we're being effective. And when you actually do what their program tests, we're not. It's not communications planneries and all this different stuff. So, and then having been the project manager on one of the corridors, which we did 8 of them, so it'd be really interesting too to see. Okay, we did the best we could with our outreach and getting public feedback and stakeholder impact to do the Vision Zero study in the first place. Now it'd be really great to see, like, oh gosh, and it is safe systems. Engineering is just one part of it. Education, correct education,
proper messaging to the right audience, the right way is a big part of it. And I'm very, I'm getting used so much right now. That's very exciting. As I went over the border, I'm like, oh, that's a school. I thought it was a private school. No, it was technically a public school. No, we don't ignore private schools. It was folded into the West Tampa one. We didn't highlight all the improvements that we proposed in and around it because it was nearby. We didn't do it. So, but that's a good catch. And yes, I love all the perspectives and so much more than just.
So it's very exciting, and we'll be choosing the behaviors that we see. And so the way social marketing works is so say bicyclists, we see there at night, no one has bike lights on, right? So we may do an intervention to go out and distribute bike lights and make sure people understand the importance of bike lights on bikes. So that's just an example of how a social marketing campaign, once you do the research, once you figure out what is needed, and then you can actually evaluate that, right? So you can evaluate the behavior change and what happened in the end. So just a little quick example, because I know social marketing is a little bit confusing if you don't understand it, and everyone thinks it's just a social media campaign. So it is about changing behavior for the good, right? So we're not marketing something like I was saying, like, Coke has a product, they have a product they can sell, but we're doing something that's for the good of society, right? So it's a little bit different the way that you place your product, and it's similar, but it's different because we know that we are doing something a little bit different than the private sector, right?
We could get misbehaving parents behavior change. Oh my gosh.
I know. Well, we could
a lot.
Anyone else? Mr. Garcia?
Hi, thank you. Great presentation. I'll send you guys an email so that you guys have my contact. I would love to coordinate with you. I was frantically taking notes in your corridors, and I was like, oh, I know all of these. So definitely good to coordinate on that. It'll be interesting to see how you guys look at entitlement in your social marketing campaign. I've heard things like, oh, the bus stop shouldn't be there because, it entices people to cross. And I'm like, the next signalized intersection is a mile that way and a mile that way. So are you expecting the person to walk for a half hour or an hour? And I've also had situations when this morning a biker crossed in front of me as I was driving to work, and I could barely see them. I love your example. And I was like, I braked, and I was like, okay, you should go. But I feel other drivers, my dad, would be like, he shouldn't be crossing there. It's my road. Like, if I kill him, it's his fault, type of thing, And I know my dad's not that person in this picture. I know a lot of people feel that way. So, yeah, thank you. And I was thinking that Chris Bella should get a TED Talk, but Mr. Ignos should get a TED Talk too. Because you're not preaching to the choir. You're telling the truth, and more people should hear that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, because what you said was honest, and I like to hear that. When you're just giving feedback, honestly, what you experienced, and so there's no judgment. We love to hear honest feedback. So thank you for that.
Anyone else? If I may, when you started your presentation, you had two things that you wanted to point out. One of them was safe speeds, and I don't know if I heard anything about that. Everyone sitting in this room knows that if you drop a speed limit by 10 miles an hour, you're going to save lives. I speak for the city of Tampa when I say that, within inside of our city limits, if we drop our speed limits to 30 miles an hour within inside the city of Tampa, we're going to have less injuries and less fatalities. Do you want to just briefly cover anything that was under your safe speeds?
Well, for me right now, that's part of just what we're looking at. We're looking at, as we go out and just do our situation analysis, we're documenting speed limits, we're documenting what we feel, what the comfort level is on the street is a big thing too. So we're just beginning this again, and this is important, but that's a very important thing to keep in mind as we're developing this. And Emmett might have something better from DOT side, but again, I'm in the very midst of this campaign, so you'll hear more about it, but that is something that, the safe speeds and safe users that we're sort of going to come up with in our campaign at the end.
Yeah, the science, in terms of say speeds, reducing the speed limit just changes speed size, doesn't really do much. And the environment needs to change to be able to influence the driver to drive at the speed of the road decides. And that may be part of what needs to change in this corridor to change the behavior and to reduce fatalities on some of these roads. So that may be something that we could definitely look into and see how we can incorporate, whether that is a barrier for people to cross as they want to. It may be that people are turning too fast at the intersections when they're turning right, so that discourages them from walking to the signal, just deciding to cross the block because they feel certain that way. So speed will have plays a factor into how people feel, how comfortable people feel when they're walking. So that's something that we could take into account as part of this.
And keep in mind though, again, I said these corridors, if any of you know them very well, they are so different. Think of 15th Street between Dollar and Fletcher, and the county just did somewhat of a complete street. So you have those raised pedestrian crossings. Then you go down to Adamo, and that's completely different, right? So just, I mean, keep in mind, there's not one size fits all here, and we're doing something that's going to fit the campaign. At the end of this is going to be something that fits that street for what we find out. I don't know yet. It's going to be what we're going to hear feedback, what we see, and then we pre-test our campaign. So again, the end product is somewhat of a marketing campaign. Just remember that. So we have behaviors, and the campaign could be for motorists and their speeds. So, how to get people to slow down and go the speed limit, for example, could be something.
And I understand that behavior is the hardest thing to change.
Yes.
Without a doubt. And I'm a proponent for no right on red within the city limits of Tampa. I know that will save lives. But a $100 speed limit sign is easier to change than $1 million road diet. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We look forward to coming back and showing you what we come up with. Yeah.
Okay, do we have Mr. Fry on the line?
Bob, it shows you self-muted.
Yes, sir.
I just made you presenter.
Good morning, Mr. Fry.
Good morning. Allison, do we have the presentation?
This is Lisa. I have your presentation if you prefer me to run it. Or I just made you presenter if you have it up and would want to advance your own slides.
I thought you had it there, so I don't have it loaded. So if you want to put it there, I could just tell you that.
Yeah, I have to take that.
Oh, I'm not seeing it.
It's loaded. Give me a second.
Okay, thank you. There we go. I'm going to apologize in advance. These allergies are, I've met my match. They win. Okay. My name is Bob Fry. I'm the Director of Planning and Innovation here at the Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority. And in 2015, we were awarded a grant, an 80-20 grant from USDOT to do connected vehicle technology. THEA put up 100% of the local match portion of that. And we moved forward for phases 1 through 3 with concept development, planning, systems engineering. This project was really a multidisciplinary project. We had private sector, public sector, academia that was taking part in this project. Some of the partners that we had were Siemens, University of South Florida Qatar, City of Tampa, Brand Motion, several different technology companies on the providing onboard units and such, working to do connected technologies. Basically the project was so successful, we were the only one of the 3 pilot sites to actually finish and meet our goals on time and on budget, that we were given an extension from September 2020 to September 22 to integrate original equipment manufacturers, the auto manufacturers, into our project. And surprisingly, when we talked to them, they all selected the same tier 1 supplier, Denso, to create their onboard units and to move forward. So this was a very interesting project in terms of being able to work with auto manufacturers, local governments, the technology companies, as well as having Cutter do all the performance measurements and making sure everything was done up to a peer review port, level. The study area was downtown. We used the REL, and we continue to use the reversible lanes as a test track. Just for a little history, in 2014, we had Audi out here with Governor Scott, which doing the first automated vehicle testing in Florida. Starsky Robotics, we were testing automated 18-wheel vehicles out there that we actually, a funny story. They came in very excited that they actually said it, got the speed up high enough to 70 miles an hour for an automated 18-wheeler. And, our Jill Wagner, our executive director's comment was, that's great, never do it again. So it's interesting when we're getting into the testing on how things work. But we've been using the REL and Meridian for testing along with the city of Tampa for other aspects involving transit and pedestrians. So I'm going to go through a little bit here of what we did and what the use cases were. Everything was based on traffic engineering audits, safety audits that we did along the corridor in the downtown, and really looking at trying to save and solve really existing transportation problems, not looking at something that was like 40 years in the future, but stuff we were dealing with right now. Use case number 1, we looked at morning backups. We also looked at wrong way entry, which is a huge issue. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it has the potential to be catastrophic. Pedestrian safety. We created pedestrian safety applications that we use at the Hillsborough County Courthouse on Twigs. We're identifying vehicles upstream and downstream of people entering the corridor, where they just take a step into the corridor and the message is sent out to the vehicles. We also worked with HART on transit signal priority on down along the Marion Street and in that area where we set that up for where we gave the transit signal within the existing I guess signal timing patterns, additional green time if they came in, as well as several different transit safety programs, applications. We basically had all the streetcars were part of this, where we put the connected technology into the streetcars along channel side and used it for testing on safety applications. And then we also looked at traffic progression, which we're continuing to still work with University of Arizona on that, on how to make the roads safer in that transition zone between limited access and urban areas safer. And one of the things that we're most proud of is we were the first ones to do over-the-air updates, where people driving their vehicles, they were automatically, with the firmware and software, was automatically updated just driving along the REL, where it happened automatically, and that was a first. So we were very happy to see that. Next slide, please. Okay. Are we good now? I think we are. Okay. Just to give people an idea of the number of messages, when we talk about connected technology and we're talking cell phones and the Bluetooth and the different type of things that are out there, this will give an idea of the system performance that we're looking at. I mean, we generated 3.1 billion basic safety message, 26.4 billion signal phase and timing messages, 3.4 billion map messages, 71.9 million traveler information messages, And we had over 152,000 interactions between OBU, which are onboard units, equipped vehicles, over the course of our CV pilot. So when we're talking about connected technology and a connected smart downtown, the amount of data and the amount of information that's out there and being put out there and the interactions is truly enormous. And that's one of the things going forward that's going to be very interesting. How do we deal with all that data? Use analytics to get it done and do it in near real time for safety. So those are some of the things we're looking at into the future on that. Next slide, please. One of the things that we're really proud of here, Cutter developed the CV dashboard, which basically was a web-based dashboard that allowed people to see what was going on our system, and their performance measurements were actually so good that USDOT used that as the template going forward. And I have Dr. Cecilio Conkas here from USF Cutter that will, in a couple of slides, talk a little bit more about the findings of what we found there. But we're trying to put the information out into people's hands. And the connected vehicle pilot, the main goal was to put the most information possible into the travelers' hands, pedestrians, transit users, and automobile users, so they can make the best decisions possible. And this is just one of the ways that we were doing that on the performance indicators from an operational perspective. Next slide, please. So the safety impact of what we saw over the course of the time was we had basically over 20,000 vehicle-to-vehicle and vehicle-to-infrastructure warnings. These numbers here are really interesting, and I'm very proud of, because they represent actual data that we're able to document and source to make sure that this happened. And that's one of the what Cutter was sourced with doing. And we had 17 potential crashes were prevented. 21 potential pedestrian crashes were prevented. 14 wrong drivers were warned. They were entering the interchange the wrong way. 19 red light warning violations. These are all actual cases that we were able to document, peer review to Transportation Research Board level to show that this was done. There's more that happened, but we just wanted to make sure these are documentable and we're able to prove them. And that was one of the things that was very important to us as part of the study, being that this was a research project. So the bottom line is we showed that we can connect to the vehicles, we can provide driver information, and it can be used. Connected vehicles can work. And how it worked going in the future remains to be seen, and that's open to some more discussions. But we were able to do it, and it did make a difference in the downtown. Next slide, please. One of the things that was very important to us was participant feedback. And what we found out when we talked to it, and we had up to 1,500 people taking part of this pilot over multiple years, and they were given a toll discount to take part in the project. So we got very good participation. What we found was the perceived benefits of 66% felt that they were safer with the connected vehicle technology. 56% believed that it reduced congestion. And here's my favorite, that 54 made it a more or less stressful commute. Because let's face it, we all know how stressful it can be when we need to get somewhere. One of the last piece that I want to talk about before I turn this over to Professor Conkas is we had about 40, before we started, about 46% of the people were concerned about privacy. And by the end, this decreased to 29%. So the more that we had people using it and getting used to dealing with the smart technology and being able to use it, the more comfortable they came, and they started to realize that their privacy really was not at risk as much as they originally believed, and came to feel much more comfortable with it. So we were very, very happy with what we saw and what we heard back from the public who actually used this, as long as as well as what we were able to document and show that we were, making differences in the corridor. So we felt this was a very positive project. We were able to work very closely with it, and we're looking, to the future on what we can do going forward. We have a further going into this, a little more breakdown of the data, and I'm going to introduce Dr. Conkus now to take over that part. Cecilio? Oh, Dr. Cecilio needs to be unmuted, please. There you go.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone, and thanks, Bob, for the introduction about the pilot. It is a very complex study indeed, and one of the premises of this grant funding opportunity from the U.S. Department of Transportation was to ultimately show that CV technology can help in terms of improving the safety and mobility of travelers in a transportation network. So as part of the performance evaluation assessment, we not only collected data from the 1,000 participants equipped onboard units, all the technology in the downtown Tampa, the massive amount of information that Mr. Fry just laid out in the previous slides, but also ultimately we gauged the opinions of the participants by surveying them, and we ran several surveys throughout the phases of the pilot. So what we have here today is the summary of the surveys that we conducted on the last phase of the pilot, phase 4, where we had the OEMs and some of the continuing participants using legacy OBU or CV technology systems. So as you see from the pie chart in here, we had more than 100 participants with the OEM equipment, which is very kind of different from what we had in the previous phases. It's a visual interface installed on a dashboard, fairly advanced. And also at the same time, the legacy participants, they had a different technology, but all put together, the responses indicate that the participants were really satisfied in terms of the overall participation and exposure to the technology. More than 2/3 of them expressed a form of satisfaction throughout the few years of participation in the study. Next slide, please. Thank you. If you could kindly keep me unmuted as I present, that would be great. So next slide, please. Thank you for unmuting me. I appreciate it. So the participants from the surveys also indicated a certain level of concerns as they participated in the study, because the technology, as advanced as it is, basically like any technology, like for example the sensors that you have installed in your own advanced vehicles, providing you with some form of warnings in case you get distracted and there's a vehicle in front of you, they are prone to generate false positives or instances where you receive a warning but actually there's no condition of a threat. So we ask questions about experiences as the participants were traveling towards downtown, and some of them expressed concerns regarding some of the false positives that we're receiving. There are some nuances, some differences between the technology installed on the OEM vehicles and the aftermarket units. it can be seen that the main concern is about false alerts. There are some additional concerns expressed in terms of the technology and the trust on the technology, but overall that went down substantially since the beginning of the participation in the study. The vast majority were concerned when they first signed off and participated in the pilot, but as they started using the technology, that concern went down drastically, and it stands at about 12% towards the end of the study, compared to more than about 50% at the very beginning of the study. Next slide, please. Next slide, thank you. This is a bit of a summary of the different applications. There's quite a few acronyms in there, but the boxes that you see in this graph, the WWE stands for the wrong way entry. There is a very important application that was developed and deployed in downtown Tampa, really at the intersection of Meridian Avenue and Twig Street. The goal of that application was to prevent participants from entering the wrong way into the reversible express lane system. And as Mr. Fry discussed in the previous slide, we had a few instances where we were able to prevent participants getting into the wrong flow of traffic with drastic consequences. The users, all the travelers, consider this application as one of the most useful, ranked basically as the top application in terms of usefulness. Some other applications that were relevant, which we deployed towards the end of the study, were the red light violation warning. Basically, you get a warning as you are moving from one intersection to the next one. Very important application along Meridian Avenue, where you have several signalized intersections. So as you have this technology installed on your vehicle, that's a cool feature, and you're traveling, you're approaching a signal, you receive real-time information about how many seconds are left before either that light turns red or green. That application was considered useful, along also with the signal countdown application. Although as we deployed it, we figured that what is very important for the CV technology to work properly is that there should be a very tight coordination with those that manage the intersections and the deployers of the CV technology, so that these very relevant applications, they function as they are intended to, but they have a lot of promise in terms of reducing conflicts at intersection. Next slide, please. A breakdown by application in terms of being useful in avoiding conflicts in traffic. The vast majority of the respondents consider that the two applications, the speed advisories that were broadcasted on the Salmon Expressway system, and the pedestrian conflict warning, which was deployed at the courthouse, a very, very important application to protect those pedestrians transitioning from the parking lot nearby the courthouse to the courthouse, considered those two applications as very, very relevant in terms of reducing conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians. We have some anecdotal information from the survey respondents. Some of them were really, really pleased with the functionality of those applications. Signal countdown advisory as well, considered as one feature that substantially reduces the stress level when traveling in the midst of dense urban environment. Next slide, please. So this is what probably, Bob, you can summarize in terms of what's coming next as we finished and we completed phase 4 of the pilot, and what the authority is actually doing.
Can you go back to the last slide, please? One thing I'd like to talk about a little bit on this is the ERDW. That's end of ramp deceleration warning. And as you can see, 81% of the participants there felt that it helped them avoid a conflict situation. This, to us at THEA, is one of the most important applications that we have and that we're looking at moving into the future. And the reason is managing the limited access to the urban area transition zone is one of the more difficult things and one of the biggest challenges we have. How do we move people to and from the city, have them come off our system, which will be at a higher speed, but then coming into a pedestrian, transit, bicycle friendly zone, the speeds have to drop to reach the safety levels that we're looking at. So this is specifically a application that was developed by the THEA CV pilot team to try to help work with this, where we give warnings when people are coming on the off ramps to slow down, lowering their speeds from the limited access down to 40 to 30 to 20 to down to 20 miles an hour where they're hitting the ramp. And we found that a lot of people found this useful. So this is something that we're going to be continuing to work with and work on. On the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about how we're going to do that. We're looking at the next generation, which is going to be much more data generation and analysis on how do we use this for operational decision making. The little box you see over there is what we call the OBU2. We are looking at how do we deploy a device in a vehicle that is separate and not relying on the auto manufacturers to provide us the data. So we can actually use it for things like speed harmonization and a couple of those safety applications. One of them being end of ramp deceleration, so that we could tell people when they're coming off what the speeds are coming down, so they can make better decisions and know that they're coming into an urban transportation slower area. So that is one of the things that I wanted to bring up, that we are looking at, especially for livable roads. And I think that this is really highly relevant in terms of livable roads on getting this to happen. Just a couple of other points I want to know that this is not something that's just being done, that we're working by ourselves. We're working with FDOT, for example, on expanded deployment of the CV through their frame projects and the I-4 frame, which will be connecting the I-4 to the Selman and other major arterials. The goal to create a connected corridor from downtown Tampa, starting on the Selman, all the way into Orlando with MetroPlan Orlando, with DOT. And FDOT has been very, very, a big part of working with us on this and trying to figure out ways to make this technology work to give better information. We're also working with University of Arizona on multimodal ITS. That's working with, at the intersection ramps, on how do we work with transit, pedestrians, and bicyclists, along with people exiting our system together, to move them through as efficiently and as safely as possible. And that's a project that we're continuing to work on with University of Arizona, who wrote the software for that. Michigan DOT, we're working with them also on electric vehicle charging. That's a new one that's come up recently, but we just signed a memorandum of understanding where we're part of their project, going up and trying to figure out how do we build electric vehicle charging into our system in the most feasible way possible. And finally, working with Utah DOT on CV2X, which is the next step on, they're looking at traveler information in the rural areas, and we're working on using the same technology in the urban areas, and then comparing information and seeing how it all works. So we're looking forward in the future to leveraging investments in federal grant pursuits, similar to the CV pilot, so we can get the most out of it, and working with more expertise. Working with USDOT is, the level of expertise they bring and that the access they give us to other smart people around the world is really, really helps tremendously. We're looking to blend existing technology with the future, so we don't have to wait till 2040, 2045. How do we take advantage of the technology we have with the future technology to start getting some benefits now? And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, that deployment of a low-cost in-vehicle device for speed harmonization and the transportation safety apps that we can control at the local level and not have to wait for the OEM development. And we can use that information from the auto manufacturers to complement the information we're using and generating locally. So that pretty much sums up our project and where we're going. And I'd love to answer any questions. And Dr. Konkas is here as well. Thank you.
Such as Waze or even Google Maps, which all show traffic problems, but sometimes are delayed. So those 2 points: make sure that you incorporate transit, and 2, make sure your data is available to the applications that more people are using.
Yes, sir. I mean, and that's a two-way street on the Waze and the canned programs that are already out there. We're looking at using them as, you know, good baseline data, but at the same time using local data to make it more laser focused towards what Tampa needs and what we need here. So yes, we are definitely working with those types of agencies on there. We have been a leader in the transit connected, working with HART on this. So yeah, we could definitely continue to value HART as a partner and look forward. Actually, we had them at we continue to have them and invite them to our innovation meetings, trying to figure out future things that we can do. So we definitely will continue doing that. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Mr. Fry.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
We have Mr. Hardy here. I'm going to ask that agenda item number, D, be held over till next month because we're coming up on time. Since we have Mr. Hardy here, please, Mr. Hardy.
All right, so I'll get through this as quick as possible. But basically, with the challenge to improve transportation throughout the city as part of Mayor Kessler's Transforming Campus. As we all know, our streets are unsafe. We have 44 people killed and 289 people severely injured on average per year. We're a top 10 most dangerous area for walking nationally. So we also don't have any money. So we need to better leverage our funds, and we're looking at creating a pretty extensive quick build program. As our first one we did, Cat Street. Basically, these are designed to be removed if needed, or supplemented in the future with hardscape, more of a capital project. But it allows us to do fast implementation, fast design. We can design these in-house, we can build these in-house. So for this one, this is the project location. You can see the entities that are around there, several schools, the Strad Center, and the Tampa Museum of Art, as well as the Blazers Museum. So the justification of this project is pretty simple. We have a second track, we have no second track, we have a second track. So just a few of the before pictures, you can see some of the people that are already biking. It's a heavily utilized area. There's a lot of people that live downtown. They go to UT and walk that bridge in between classes. So you see a lot of people, especially pedestrian and multimodal use across this bridge. This is just a few examples of that. So this is what we're looking at as before. You can see all the roadway width that we have allocated to car space, vehicle space. And here's a few people crossing here, which is, this crossing is also the Riverwalk connection too. So you have another multimodal trail that is crossing at this intersection. And you can see people want to cross diagonally as well, because that is a heavy movement from the crosswalk or the ramp on the one side to the diagonal ramp on the other side. So what we did was we took out one lane and we added a cycle track here using temporary materials, or I shouldn't say temporary, but non-concrete materials, things that can be pinned down, things like that. This is the plan, which you can't really see, so I'm just going to skip through the pictures. But so what we did was we removed a dedicated drop right, meaning that there was a second westbound lane that we removed that just dropped off at the intersection anyway. We did modify the bus stop. We are still working on protecting the intersection, adding green paint that is not out there yet. And we didn't remove any of the access to any of the schools. We also added a micro-mobility hub for scooter parking, because you can see how big of a problem it is where they're all parking right on the pavement there. They still, I don't think they realize that's what it's for yet, so we gotta figure out how to paint it, make sure that they realize that that's what it's for. On the Strata side, or the downtown side, I should say, we basically took out the left turn, so we removed the eastbound left, and then we retimed the intersection. So you saw the gentleman walking diagonally. The intersection now dwells ahead. So what that means is that the intersection is always red on all approaches until the car actuates. So once a car comes up and actually says, hey, I need to turn to go, then it switches to a green light in either direction. So this is the before, this was the rendering, and this was the construction point. I wanted to, one more thing, we built this during Stratus Hamilton season. So there was a lot of effort to maintain, that's why we maintained one westbound lane, but it went off without pitch, didn't have any issues whatsoever. So before rendering, and then this is what it looks like. It's not today, this is still during construction. The products that we use, these are some pin down bike curb from a company called Traffic Logics. They're polycarbonate, or I should say rubber, bike curb, then a vertical face that goes up against the traffic and a wedge shape against the bike lanes. And then we also supplemented that with some delineators every so often. I think it's we have a delineator to bike curb, then delineator to bike curb, delineators. We have a few pictures of us either testing it out or installing it. These are all city crews installing it. William Forth, who's on the top right, has kind of transitioned into a role here that he's always been a safety lead for the city, but he's also getting out. He's really excited about this. He went out the other day and he was doing something and he's like, yeah, I can't get this to work. So he went out and bought an air compressor on his own and started blowing out the debris out of the hole so he could actually install the delineator. So he's loving it out there. He's always been kind of a hands-on guy. And then on the bottom right, we had a press event with Mayor Castor and the Bloomberg Associates. That's Jeanette Seneca right there standing next to her. And with basically, the presser was about this event and then also about our adoption of NACDO standards, which just went through council on Thursday.
I see our chairs in that photo too.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the photo, but you can see this one went off without a hitch. It was, you can see the amount of people, the people in the orange vests there, they all worked on it. It's not like physically worked on that project. And then the engineering staff is somewhere there too. So we have a few other ones that we're planning right now. 14th Street, Avenida de Republic de Cuba, which is, this is what it looks like now. It's a 2-lane road, and we have about 2,600 vehicles per day. Posted speed is 30, actual speed of probably 90. And then lack of defined travel lanes and extra right away. So we did a lot of public outreach for this one. We did an Unlock the Block event where we closed down the road, invited the residents out to talk about what they wanted to see. Games and stuff for kids, chalk drawings, that kind of stuff, some vendors out there. Basically, they wanted to see a section where it went down to 1 lane, parking on both sides. Parking is actually quite used there because there's a skate park there as well, a pool and everything. And then the residents, a lot of them don't have driveways either, so they need the on-street parking. So we're in design for this. We should be starting construction April 10th. So we'll be milling, resurfacing, adding bike lanes, park protect bike lanes, and stuff like that. That's it. The only other thing that I'll update y'all on is we are looking at Cleveland Street. We have plans to remove the northernmost lane on Cleveland, west of the river, right after the Bury Street Bridge, all the way to Willow. And then we are working with FIA right now on their South Salmon study, which was going to do some kind of five-legged intersection that was kind of bad for pedestrians on Willow and that intersection. We developed a concept with NACDO to like kind of look at a different concept, and they modeled it and it worked great. So I don't know if y'all had a chance to meet with Greg Slater yet or anything, but he is really pushing FIA into a much more urbanized design philosophy, and he is really doing a great job with Bob and all them as well with doing safety projects, protected intersections, stuff like that. So we're looking at working with them to see what we can do there too, to incorporate our project into theirs. So that's about it.
Mr. Hay.
Great projects. I use Cass Street a lot. If you could maybe get with the police to enforce the no left turn, because people, when they're from Tyler to Tyler, because what they're doing is they're holding everyone up, and I gave a nice polite beep, and someone gave me a nice wave back. It's happening a lot, so it's kind of holding everyone up. So
yeah, and that's temporary until McKinnis gets.
I think a few of their tickets might stop.
Once McKinnis connection is complete, then that will alleviate that, because Tyler doesn't go anywhere, so loops the block. But yeah, you're right. And we had to do that because of that reason.
Cool. Thanks.
Mr. O'Hare.
Really quick, with Cass Street, was there any kind of reception or interaction with the university just south of the project?
Yeah, we met with, on Cass Street, it was so accelerated, we met with the shareholders. So we didn't do like a full-on public meeting. However, Cass Street we've already held hundreds of public meetings because it's a cycle. So it's already been programmed. And to be honest, we probably won't do the whole project. We'll probably keep doing this division. It's really not needed to put our money elsewhere. But the shareholders, we've worked with University of Tampa. Everybody was very supportive. We didn't have anybody saying, well, you can't do this or anything. Everybody was very supportive of the project. So Stress Center, University of Tampa, Tampa Prep, thank you. The children's store, they all had great ideas. They wanted to see other things added to it. Just to let y'all know, usually projects like this, they always bring up Bayshore. To get that southbound bike lane on Bayshore, it took 14 years and 3 separate projects to be programmed through state funds. This project was 260,000, which was because we built and restored. And it was 6 months of implementation, 4 months of design and planning, and 2 months of building. So it was open real quick. So, and same thing with ARDC. That's 14th Street. That was going to be about the same timeline.
Yeah, but just a quick note, I was at Hamilton during the construction and was so excited to walk outside and say, look, it's there. But yeah, it went off without a hitch and just looks awesome. So I'm a big fan of the quick build and really excited to see this stuff happen in months, not years. And that's really exciting and should be chasing.
We also did one on Main Street, just so you know, at the kind of residential section between McDill and Howard. That still needs speed tables to be installed, but we're generating some different details that coming up with ideas to allow for like the raised crosswalks where you can't build a raised crosswalk because raised crosswalks are expensive. We're thinking of ways to actually get some kind of vertical deflection and advance the crosswalk, kind of boxing in vehicles a little bit more by using delineators around speed tables so they can't go around them. or if they do, they still doesn't do any good because they got to travel at 2 miles or 10 miles per hour to get around them. That kind of stuff. Even on Cat Street, with the delineators, we purposely left out we had delineators every like 10 feet or so, and then 2 or maybe 15 or 20 feet, I can't remember. And then 2 of those bike curbs. But around the crosswalks, we left out the bike curbs for 2 sections. And the reason why is that because people on trailers and cargo bikes don't want to make that right-hand turn to get into the crossing there, so they can kind of just diagonally go into it. So just little things like that, paying attention to how people actually use the roadway, help out the success of the project.
Our heroes, Cal.
Anybody else? Cal, one of the widest streets that I know of in the city of, excuse me, least used widest streets I know is North A, between West Shore and Dale Mabry. Can we do something like this with North A?
So we have Gray Street in that area, but we're looking at it when we have 2 projects there that are not programmed yet. Those 2 neighborhoods there, West Shore Palms and North Pond Air, are both up for research. And with Gray Street as well, it makes sense to kind of look at that neighborhood because North A and North B in that area also get a lot of cut through. They're already traffic calm right now, I think, on some portions of it. So I kind of brought up, if we're going to go for Gray Street, we are looking at using diverters, which are basically car traffic cannot go through on Gray Street, they have to go around, which in that case, you basically hit other blocks too. So car traffic will kind of have to circumnavigate blocks like that, whereas bike traffic can go right through. So with that, that will cause some traffic calming on the other blocks as well.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Cal.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Garcia, Mr. Garcia.
I'll follow up with you about 14th Street.
Yes.
Making sure we coordinate.
Yeah, we're looking at platforms. So we're looking at doing the modular platforms for that, rather than, and we actually might get into Gray Street too and pull out what we have now with bus days, not Gray Street, Cat Street. So we're just trying to figure out what product and pricing and get a order. Everything takes 6 months to get in.
Yeah.
So
I'm just making sure we're all on the same page. But
yeah, we've been talking to, we sent the plans to Sam Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been talking to him the whole time, so we usually talk to him when all work out.
Great, thank you.
I'll start making sure that you're on the team on this.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? And without objection, we're adjourned.
That was quick, right?